I got broads in Atlanta. Just took the lean in the family. Credit cards and the scammers.
Well, Western Kentucky's Student University Government Association just passed a resolution calling on their school to provide free tuition for all African-American students. Why is that? Well, they say it's to make reparations for slavery, a practice abolished more than 150 years ago. The resolution also, by the way, denounces standardized tests for, quote, upholding white supremacy, and calls on the school to admit any currently incarcerated black person who wants to attend. They do not exclude violent criminals from that category. Andrea Ambaum is a student senator at Western Kentucky University. She co-authored the resolution in question, and she joins us now. Andrea, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, of course.
It's Andrea Ambaum, by the way.
I beg your pardon. In either case, we're glad to have you.
That's fine.
So I understand the reasoning. I think it's really clear. I don't think I agree, but there's no mystery about what this is about. But some of the details are unclear. So, for example, would the category, the benefits from this, include black students whose families weren't in the United States during the slaveholding period? Recent arrivals, for example.
I actually can't hear you very clearly. Let me try turning up the volume.
If you would. So let me just restate my question. Of course. The question is, would this apply to students whose families weren't here when slavery existed in the United States? So a lot of recent immigrants from Africa, the Caribbean, would they benefit from this?
So when we talk about reparations, we're definitely specifically talking about people who have direct ties to slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation. I think that there are separate but just as important conversations to have about African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants who come here and also face racial discrimination that inhibits them from education as well.
Huh. So even people whose families didn't suffer under state-sponsored discrimination or under slavery would be entitled to that. Those groups tend to do, as I'm sure you know from looking at the numbers, pretty well. In a lot of cases, out-earn native-born Americans. Why would they be entitled to this also, or to any special consideration?
So you're using the word entitled, and I don't know if that's the right word. When we talk about African immigrants who come here and face racial discrimination, I can actually speak on this very uniquely because I am the daughter of immigrants who came here. There is unique discrimination that faces African immigrants that many people don't talk about. Well, I feel like as this proposal specifically focuses on black Americans who have dealt with the effects of slavery and the inability to pass on wealth, which is really the big point that makes these groups disenfranchised and unable to get to college as readily as some groups are.
Okay. But what if those, well, you're really arguing two different things, but so let's stick to the primary one. How could you prove that your family was affected by Jim Crow or slavery? Would you have to show that your ancestors were, a certain percentage of them were African American? I mean, what would be the standard for this?
So these are important questions, and I'm actually glad you're asking them because the whole point of this resolution was to get a conversation started about reparations owed to black Americans, specifically in the form of education. So there are small details, such as the ones you're pointing out, that would need to be more nuanced and more focused on, but I don't think it's very difficult to prove that someone who hasn't immigrated here has suffered from the effects of slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation.
I'm not sure they're small details, though, and they kind of get to the heart of what I think may be the problem with this, or one of the problems with it, and that is you might have a body like your university or the U.S. government or a state government doing blood tests on people to decide who's in what racial category and then giving people benefits on the basis of that. And that used to be considered really creepy, you know, because it evoked earlier and uglier times when government would decide what category you were in based on your blood and help some people and hurt others. Does that give you any pause at all?
I think saying that it hurts others, I don't know what exactly you mean by that. So the whole point of the resolution is that college should be accessible to everyone.
Right.
And right now there are historical obstacles in place that uniquely affect black Americans that make college so that it's not accessible. Universities love to use words like diversity, inclusion, but they fail to recognize how slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, how all of these things still affect a lot lot of black youth today and make it very hard for them to get into college, and more specifically, pay for college. So the idea is not that this would hurt anybody. It would help people. And
well, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me stop you there. And I don't think everything you're saying is crazy or anything, but the idea that no one would be hurt by preferences for some doesn't really hold up. If I have 3 kids and I give 2 ice cream but not the third, I'm kind of hurting that kid because I'm showing favoritism to the other kids. And so, of course, it does. Any kind of segregation was bad because it showed favoritism to one group on the basis of that group's race. And this seems pretty much exactly the same as that. Why is it different?
And the word you use, favoritism, that's really important. To say that paying back African Americans for capturing them, enslaving them, then segregating them and pushing them into communities, to say that paying them back is favoritism, it's just not the right word, right?
Well,
it's
I don't know. And hold on here.
For...
An 18-year-old African American, maybe his parents are doctors, if you're giving him benefits over, I don't know, someone of a different color from a poorer background, it doesn't seem like justice to me. Does it to you? And that happens, by the way, a lot.
I don't know if that happens a lot, but
it certainly happens.
What we're talking about here
happen.
is, sure, when you talk about economic privilege, some groups in different races are more privileged than others. That's a fact. That's true. But when we're talking about specifically black students getting into college, there are huge disparities in comparison. And that's really the point of this resolution, is to talk about those disparities and bring those to light.
I wish we had more time because I think it's a really interesting conversation. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.